Okay. So you're starting with a focus on, or I'm focusing today for our group practice on refining ways of kind of circulation in the poses by using a wall, right? So you can kind of deepen the presence into your bones is what I feel like the wall can do. So it kind of ignites some, I guess, some traction internally. So we're going to start near a wall. You don't necessarily have to touch the wall to begin, but maybe it's good luck to touch it first. Okay. So I want you to sit in front of your bolster with your feet towards the wall. You're not touching the wall in the beginning. You might fuss around in this first pose to get oriented, but you have a block and have it flat. Lean back. There's many ways to orient your circulation in this horizontal chest opener. I haven't decided what my favorite wave of movement into it is yet. Sometimes I'll start sitting on the block and then I'll lie back. Sometimes I like to lift my hips and just kind of engage my leg patterns of lifting, and then kind of feel how I shift back my spine. But you know, the shifting back, this core kind of maneuver, even if it's minute, there is a path of trying to get that lift of the midsection so that there's circulation to the heart and the lungs, but also to the hip flexors. So take some time to figure this. If you're too close to the wall, you might end up pushing back, but make sure that all the props underneath you are nicely supporting you. They're not just so-so. You don't want to have your block kind of turn or your bolster shifting to one side and it's not just perfect. Be perfect about it. And then once you settle your back and you get that heavy sandbag lifted across you, then we take the sand and we essentially help the legs in the front elongate. Right? And if you think of how you sense your leg bones, since they hold up your pelvis, your spine, you know, I sense sometimes that the back of my legs just feel steeped in a little bit more, they're just more durable. And my front is stiff and they have tension and restriction. So feel if you can get both sides of the legs durable during this class. So just creating that length in the front. If it's causing you a pinch in the back, then you might work on really opening up the layers of the chest. So that might be without a belt to begin. So feel how the blankets are. If one is enough, you can go down to 1 or 2. And then as the arms open, the basin of the brainstem is gently tilted up to support that length from the neck into the brain. And then feeling that connection of your arms, if you want to hold the belt and kind of illustrate that sensation in the chest to begin, or if you want to maybe come back to it in a few moments and simply begin with the arms settled onto the ground. But perceive your awareness of face relaxing, eyes closed, and gathering your attention on a slow, deep inhale and an exhalation, maybe to bring your focus downward. Sometimes the exhalation seems low in the body. And make sure the legs are separate enough that it eases your back. Yeah, that could be your feet feel like they're pretty wide, but they're likely not that wide in the shape if you were to look down at them. But just trust, right? Trust that your kind of intuition of spacing is focused on that internal awareness, closing the eyes, breathing slowly, and settling inwards. If at any time you need to bend your knees or move the sand up to the ribs, you're perfectly welcome to do that. It might be the better position for you some days. So open the chest with the legs straight or bent. So enjoy that there's some stillness, but there's also a large ray of circulation in the upper bones in this position, right in the chest, in the shoulders. And now we're going to move into cobbler's pose, but we'll keep the props below us exactly the same. If you're holding your belt, let it go. And then as we slide the feet in towards the seat, so the knees kind of perk up, feel the possible challenge of the sand here. Right? Maybe it feels, eventually it starts to feel comfortable to have that weight and that placement of connection to the front of the hip. But now as we move the sand, you can either shift it aside or you can move it up to your ribs. You choose. And you might decide, well, I'm going to figure out how to decide once I get into the cobbler's pose. And that's when that moment just decides the movement of the sand. But if it is across the ribs, you want to have it so it's across. It's not lengthening down from heart to belly, horizontal. But as the feet push in together and the knees are out, you have soles of the feet together, knees apart. How close they are to towards the groins is up to you. It doesn't mean the closer they are, the more intense on the knees, which could be negative, right? You might find if they're farther down, it puts a little drag on the knee cycle of movement. So what we are going to do is add this in to a different shape. So just take a few more moments. We're going to keep the sand if you use the sand on this pose. The arms are open. And feel the feet, which direction you want them, closer to the groins or a little farther down, distant. Kind of sense when they go farther towards the wall, where that trickles into your leg, the inner line of the leg. Doesn't mean just adductor, right? It's also below the knee. And that part of the leg is certainly kind of not attended to in most classes. We don't really get the inside of the knee down to the ankle, the inside of the foot. Let's try that. Let's let the knees point up, slide the left foot towards the seat, but of course the leg has to stay properly bent. And then lift the right foot and cross that ankle to the left knee and let the right knee just release down. It definitely always has more to go, but see if you can just accept the range it's at. Feel the balance in the arch of the spine. Sand could be on or off. If you're not liking this intensity with breath, you can always remove it. And then switch the leg cross. So right foot down, left foot up, cross it to the right knee and let that left knee kind of band of the leg motions outwards. Doesn't go all the way out. It's hooked up to a knee, right? So it doesn't have the possibility to fling. It's kind of in a guarding position. And sometimes these poses are excellent because you put these guards on the joints and stimulate the bones a bit. And now as you get a feel, I imagine like the one knee of yours pushes farther out than the other. The radius of circulation is always a little different. So just with that knowledge and attention, let's do it one more time each side, but we'll go real brief. So lift up the right foot, cross it to the left knee, let that knee open. And just kind of notice how it feels around your sacrum, your low back. Okay, does that knee kind of move out and down? Does it feel more guarded? Then switch legs. Right foot down, and then cross that left foot to the right knee and let that knee open. You might be more guarded on the second round, trying to keep it balanced. But there's likely some differences. Not even necessarily with the leg appearance or how it looks moving out, but even the sensation around the sacrum. So as you uncross, this is important for SI joint stuff. We're going to take away the sand, but keep it near your left side. And as you push your feet down, you want to kind of feel the flatness of foot, push down to your feet. Interesting, if I try to keep my heels down, I lift my hips up, and then I just tilt over to the left or right side and move the block and place it, actually, it's going to go overhead if you're going to use that version of side sage. If you're not, just put it anywhere. And then feel how you let your hips dive back to the ground, but use that movement of the hips down to the ground to help you get the ribs to stretch. So you'll roll with your ribs into your bolster. This will change for those of you that use an extra bolster. So when you come up and you get ready for side sage, if you want to add that second bolster, this would be the time to put in your round bolster or your second flat bolster. And then you could put that bolster, so you have two here, one bolster, one bolster. I'm going to go one bolster, two blankets. Okay. One bolster, one bolster. It sounds like some sort of a comic. Okay. So we take a ball on the inside of the right leg. Okay. Oh, my sandbag nearly matches my pants. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. Okay. So place your sandbag onto the outer right side. And as you put your blankets, or let's say you got a bolster here, okay, then it's kind of a deemed height. The only, I think, challenge of the bolster is that the height is not, disputable. You can't change it. With a blanket, you can change it. So some days this just feels downright easeful to have my blanket. But if you got a bolster and you're happy with it, use that. You can also use your round bolster and then blankets on the other side. So you get that perky lift in the ribs. So accentuate the movement of the ribs. Take some time, even though this arm seems to be what's deeming that movement possible. I don't think that's probably true, right? It's the breath first, right? That's where your kind of life begins in this pose. Okay, and so if you let the length occur with your side, and then your arm could either be over to the block, it could be down to the bolster. Yeah, right now it's just kind of interesting with my neck perspective. So I know it's probably wise if I just let my head tilt on the left side to the blanket. A little easier on my neck. So if your blankets feel like they're too high, too low, adjust. If it's a bolster issue, you might have to put it away and use your blankets. But let's transfer the focus to the side stretching. And first claim the stretches through the breath. And let the movement of the ribs support how much air you get into the lungs. Right, and it's a constant experience, right? Breathing. Slowing it down. And once you have a nice pace of breath, see if you can be without vocalizing or talking. You could talk to yourself during class, I suppose, but see if you can emphasize breathing only, and then feeling how it affects the movement in the side of the body. So the ribs, not the arm lifting and moving or the leg kicking around, but just the inner movement. And now once that right arm is resting now, if it was overhead, bring it to the bolster. Okay, so I know that can be a little gentle for some of us. We might want to kind of wildly move our arm around. But you notice when your arms get to this layer, what we're going to do is kind of recruit the muscles in the back. So Let that sand slip off and then rotate a little to that left side. Well, we know we're going to move. We're going to move towards table pose. So move the ball. And this is more kind of a deep thread into your back. So turn so that you face away from the wall. Your feet are going to be at the wall. And you don't want your bolster in the way of your hands, right? So you might have to shove it a little bit back between the arms and the knees. But let the hands stretch open. You want a wide stance with the hands. I like to think of it as wide hand stance because we usually think of stance as feet. But when you lift up the knees and stretch the heels maybe a little bit up at the base of the wall, that might feel best for you right now. Going all the way to the heels to the floor could be a little aggressive to start out with this version of upper back work. So, think of this. I mean, let's take some of the names out of our shaping and just work on what we're working into, right? Our upper back. So I'm pressing the floor away. My heels up feels a little more into my back. It does shove more weight in the back, but get a feel of the movement of your abdomen when you're upside down. This is a dynamic inversion, so it's not as if you can just like go rest your eyes and your body parts. You have to kind of push the floor away when you're breathing. So it's an efforting lung pose. Okay. Now with a lot of effort this causes, right? Now when we shift our knees down, just lean forward into that bolster like you would in an upward facing dog pose. Oops, I caught myself saying the name of something. Well, I'll work through it. So lengthen the front, feel where the arms are. Mine are a little shifted back at an angle, but I'm just exploring the kind of perking up into the muscle sheath over the bone. So I'm just trying to recruit that strength. Okay. And now come back to table, round your back into cat pose, chin to chest. Even if it doesn't get near your chest, you try. Inhale, arch the spine. Yeah, use this as movement of the spine. Exhale, move the spine, flex the spine. Inhale, arch the spine. Yeah, it's tricky. It's almost as if you like to take that whole spine and just work with it and create strength and fluidity. And this is one way you can empower that. It requires arm work, requires pelvis control, but it is one way to kind of move that spine into fluidity. You don't want it to stiffen up. Okay, next time you go back to table, let's take side sage with the right hip down, of course, other side, and simplify. So if you push your bolster back and you need to go a little bit away from the wall, go for it. And ball, I find, is essential for my knee personally. I don't care for this one without something on the inside. It could be a block or it could be a towel or a ball. If you don't have a ball, you can always use something else to place on inside. And one of the reasons why is if you look at someone doing this shape without something on the inside of the knee, their leg tilts down, and then you just look at the femur bone, and it just looks like a recipe for, jamming in and possibly causing some minor influences in the knee joint that could be offsetting for your comfort. So let the left arm reach. It could open. In the beginning, you might just let it be kind of playful. Only the beginning, and then we get serious. Okay. So, feel if you roll on the back of your head, if that gives you this openness through the armpit chest. If you roll to the side, that's fine. It might feel like, I've got that rib cage stretching fully. Okay. So your left hand is either on a block, high block. It could be on that bolster. So you're going to turn your head to the right side, relax. It could be on your side. Right onto the sandbag or the thigh. And then as you decide the side deal, sense the movement of the in and out breath. Let the body weight sink. This is a perfect opportunity to do sinking, grounding, accepting work. And now feel if that left arm is overhead, start to bring it to a place of, you could call serenity right now. So it's not a pull through the shoulder joint as much as the overhead, and just feel where the arm is a little more passive. You know, there's probably been some point in life where you had to hold your arm in this position to guard it or to protect it from whatever injury it had had, if you've ever had a broken arm. So you got to get that close to your side, and you just notice that you still can work on the rib cage movement. I imagine those times of life you probably don't, but still work on the breathing, openness through the front body. Okay, now when we do shift ourselves to our right, okay, this left side has had a little bit of extra blood flow, most recent, right? So we know it's the most recent zone, and our body, I think, remembers these things. Our body keeps the score. Okay, it's a really good book. Okay, so roll to the right and then take a position of sitting on your bolster. And if you need to kind of shake it out, you can shake it out or move your knees side to side. Whatever is kind of helpful for you right now to get back to something kind of strict. Okay, so we've got our bolster and we want our feet to touch the wall. So this will be kind of a measurement experience for the first few rounds of it. So I tend to be a little bit back on my bolster. I don't want to be like dropping far forward because then my leg hyperextends, right? So that might be something that some of you work a little bit with, having this kind of little micro bend, nothing aggressive because you're going to be crossing your legs. So you don't want the bend to be so lifted that you can't get your leg over. You'll find out. So have your feet at the wall, okay? And then when you're pressing in towards the wall, looks like we're doing it. Okay, you got sand. Let's see what we're gonna need here. I don't know if we're gonna use sand for this one today. Okay, so we're gonna purely work with the wall force into the leg bones. So when you're pushing, just study for a moment with your hands either kind of besides your bolster, depends on your arm length. I can put my hands on my bolster and still keep my chest open. But some of you that might let your spine round. So spine is up. Sitting space is interesting because if you push your feet into the wall, you might notice some of the particles of kind of a tension in the upper leg, and then kind of in the belly area is a little decreased. So I want you to work with feeling where the spine is trying to lift up out of the pelvis. So just play pretend here. Spines are up, spines are us. Okay, now look at your great feet. And if you got a little baseboard, it might not be exactly, we might all be a little different on how our foot is able to push into the wall. But noticing from your feet towards your knees, if the legs slant down, right, you want to do a tiny micro bend so the knees don't start to go into this X position where they're kind of pulling in from the ankle joint to the knee joint. This can cause some issues all the way up to the back. Okay, now cross the left foot up and over the right leg. And let's keep the right foot pushing into the wall. If you're a baseboard, I don't want you to lift your heel up on top of it. That's not good for our knee. So I want you to be at the base. That's fine. You can still push into the wall. And now as you lift up into your arms, and just make it so it's realistic. For me, arms this way hurts my shoulder a bit. So I'm slanted. Okay. So work on sitting up. That's the core workout here, just trying to be up without caving in. Okay, try to get upwards. And then turn left and bring the left hand back. Maybe there's a blanket to the back behind you, maybe to a blanket or a block. And then hook the right arm to that left leg and try to press with that right arm. Great. To that left leg and feel that there's still part of you in the front, right? You still have your foot to the front. So take a peek at your foot. Is it turning in? Is it still straight up the wall? Straight up is good. And rotate left. And you decide, you deem the amount of movement that's necessary for you to maintain that upright shape. And the knee is drawing towards the right, the left knee. Okay. All right, now feel if you can bend your right arm. So if your right arm will bend, you'll probably create a little more spring in the rib cage to turn. It feels like it's, less than 1% intensity, I find, of getting better at that. Okay, now lower that hand and then reach the right arm around that left leg and bring both arms to that left leg, to the knee, that is, and then pull. And just take a few moments kind of meditatively with the focus of being upright. And using the arm, considering that the arms can really span out of our back. If you have the left arm tightening more than the right arm, work on spine up, crown of the head up. Okay. All right, simple. Okay, so now we're going to bring the right foot in so it tucks in towards the bolster, bending. Left foot crosses in front, so you're in a simple crisscross. The foot is not on top of the knee, it's on the floor, the left foot. And then you might sit like this and feel like you need to scoot your tush around. I find that if I'm prim and proper in that last shape, and then I try to kind of move my knees outwards to stretch my hips, I need to use my hands to help push me a little bit back, because you want this under flesh, you want this flesh under the leg to actually move a little bit back so that you can kind of balance into your hip. So now lift the left arm, bend through the elbow, and you can either stay with this position with the hand to the back, or the right hand moves to the left elbow and it tries to push it a little bit back. Yeah, so this means I'm starting to turn a little left, so I'm trying to stay forward towards the wall. Okay, now take that left arm in front of the chest, release the right hand from the elbow, left arm on top of the right, intertwine the arms, try to let the elbows sink down for a moment. Okay, now the elbows are leaning into your heart. So you're going to tilt forward. Okay, be a little cautious. You can always add sand to your left leg on this one. I'm just going to keep it kind of pure and simple. This is plenty of information in my body to cycle through. So as you have the hands here, I tend to have my hands connected a little bit on this one. Not required. You might barely have your hands together. But unwind the arms and bring your hands either down to the bolster or maybe towards the wall. I love the wall in this one. If I can get the wall, I like this a lot because my spine has a little bit more spring. If you need to kind of scoot to the wall with your bolster, go for it. You can get a hold of it and scoot yourself forward and feel a little more connected. But feel where the weight is in your seat, where the arch is through the spine. Okay, now of course you could go farther towards the floor with this pose, right? Hands go down more in the hip, more in the hip. But I want to encourage you to create that spring through the spine. It's almost more difficult, not to drop down. Okay, it's going to feel a little wound up in the legs, I'm sure, right now. A little leg wound up. And as you come back, bring both feet to the wall. I know I mentioned this would be kind of a strict part of the sequence, so just try to keep with it. Your spine will like the response, I think, when you work with these very specific angles, both feet to the wall, like we did in the beginning of the seated shapes. And your arms might kind of dangle down from the shoulder pieces. I got some shoulder pieces here. And then you're pushing into the wall. So if you find you're farther away from the wall when you push in now, it's kind of interesting how things shorten up and shrink when you do the last few poses. Sometimes that happens. So push into the wall, take your feet farther apart so they're almost hips distance. Try to work pushing so that it works all the way up into your hip. Now, if it's hurting your back to sit up tall, it's like, oh, this is painful. Maybe you want to, round. Work with opening the chest. Just give it a try. We already know that's better, but, sometimes it doesn't feel good. Okay. Not everything that feels good is good. Rounding my back maybe sometimes feels good, but I know it's not good. Okay. Slide the right foot in. Cross the right foot over the left leg. I don't think I went too quick on that. But when you're pushing into your left foot, if it feels faint pushing into the wall, that's probably going to bother you deeper in the bones. So I would, scoot yourself a little closer. I don't want, even if it's just a you don't even know, it's tiny. You can't even process how much you go forward. But I want you to feel like you can push into it. If your leg is hyperextending and you're starting to feel fatigue in the back of the knee, an easy fix for that is just to slide your sandbag and just kind of put a little bit of it underneath that left leg. That's pretty easy. You might have one side that happens to, and it's very obvious when you get there. It just feels like that back of the leg is weak. Even if that's not your trouble knee, I think it's something to notice, the back of the knees. Now I lift up. This time I'm not going to use my arms to try to position my turn. I want to work on my rib cage. So feel from the movement of the heart forward and up, and then see if you can turn, use your core muscles to the right before you push into your arm. So inhale. I know all you have is breath, and then exhale, turn, and see how much you turn with just your spine strength. Usually we whip our arm into the practice to do the work. Our arms do an awful lot for us. So as you turn, feel how much you turn just with your midsection, right? And then bring that right hand back. This blanket's too far away from me. Left arm crosses. Now, if your knee is starting to drop down, the right knee, use that support of the left arm to kind of hook that side of that right knee and sit yourself up. Yeah, even if you do less rotation, that's okay. Yeah, this is one where it's constantly a work in progress for me, I feel. Like getting the right leg crossing, feeling the left arm supported. Even part of a pose is a whole pose, right? There's all these little segments that you feel is a whole pose on its own. So rotate, spine up, exhalation, turning. You can bend your left arm, you can keep it straight. If you change it, it might be interesting, it might be not good. You have to find what works for you. And now as you start to turn back forward, release the hook of the arm. And then if you have a sandbag under, slide it out. And then take that crossing with that right foot forward of the left. And then get a feel here. Right arm goes up. Again, if you want sand on the right thigh, you can place it on top of the right thigh. Bend your right elbow and bring the left hand to that right elbow. If that's too much for your shoulder, you know, it's this whole back arm, you know, not just a tricep situation, but it kind of cleans up some of this material in the side, in this upper arm. That circulation can be just, it just doesn't seem to flow sometimes. So see if you can work for these moments here with that reach of that right arm. Now, right arm over left, intertwine the arms in front, unless you can do that behind your back. Okay, and then lean forward. Okay, now feeling that your seat may be kind of sliding off your bolster. See how your legs kind of grab into the bolster itself. Okay, so I'm a little bit more restricted on this side as far as the joined movement of my shoulders, my arms, and my back movement. So I just kind of pause and feel, and then uncross through the arms and reach to the wall. This is what I'm aiming for anyway. Now, if you don't like how the legs are in composure here, maybe you decide you want a ball under one of the legs or a block, you can use those extra props. Of course you can. You never know. Maybe that feels like what you need is some prop support. I'm going to feel what's the right one. The right leg will probably need more because the ball could be good on that one too, besides the knee. But you feel if that is even useful, if you want to add some props under the legs. If you're deepening the hip stretch, you add a sandbag to the top of this right thigh. Okay, that's what you would do to deepen it. But if you already feel plenty, you know, go through with the process of leaning forward to the wall and balancing the breath in the back body. If it's stuck in the front because you're going forward, sometimes we think in the direction we're going. Don't forget the back. Okay, now when you are able to feel, notice how your wrists are if they're at the wall, okay? Because we're going to reflect on this when we turn around to do some standing work. So I'm going to kind of stick with this pattern. We're going to do some standing, and then we're going to do legs up and just kind of mix it up and use the mix up of movements to influence our circulation drills into our into the bones. That sounds kind of strange, isn't it? Circulation drills into my bones. Okay. All right. Now, when you're pushing, I don't know if you feel your wrists the same as in when you have the hands on the ground underneath your shoulders. So just kind of notice what the wall does. If this is giving you some proper kind of attention in the arms. I personally like pushing a wall versus a floor for my wrists. This feels a little bit more happy for my hands. So just kind of make a note of that. And if I remember, I'll ask at the end. So we can start to decide if we're going to do some more wall work with our hands to the wall, maybe add a chair, that kind of thing would be easier on our wrist. Okay, so come back. You don't need to go get a chair today. Come back and then take any sand, any prop away. I do want you to keep this focus back with your feet just for one more moment here. So pushing into your feet, both of them at the wall. Your legs are probably needing this, the back of your knees. Probably need some sort of circulation kind of spill off from tightening. So push into your block in front of you. Don't force your arms overhead, just in front. If holding your block wide is feeling like an exercise for your back muscles, well, it is. So we have our block wide, and we're pushing into the block. I hope your wrists are okay. We just did wrist press. This is another press on a wrist, but I'm assuming this is a little easier than when your hands are below your shoulders. Okay, now my feet are a little bit apart because I can see my knees are trying to go closer together. So I'm going to press and take a moment, whether your elbows bend or not, just don't judge it. They might end up bending because they're tired. But I want you to get a feel of your feet really pushing into the wall. So you feel up into the legs. Doesn't really feel like a stretch as much as it's importing into the circulation. Okay, your back might be a good alignment, it might be so-so. Okay, now lower the block to the side, and then let's turn over to our blanket. Let's see, I want you to have, let's just move our bolster away. Let's put our blanket under our knees. One of them is fine. And then your other blanket, I'm just not so sure when we're going to use that right now. I'm going to put it to the side because I'm sort of thinking we're not. Okay, so placing your hands under your shoulders, getting some blocks. Sorry, trying to get our prop directions first. The sides of your mat. Okay. Spread the fingers out, and the knees are on blanket, of course, quite supported. Okay, now when you reach your feet into the wall, part of your foot, if you got a little board at the base, my whole foot can't touch the wall. My ball of my foot pushes that base, and then my heels kind of spring a little bit off of that. So not quite to the wall. Now that can be a nice kind of emphasis into your abdomen. So I want you to work with pushing into the balls of the feet, and then round the back into cat. So chin towards chest. Okay. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. Inhale, arch. And last time, I want you to just keep it simple. So you exhale centered here. Okay. Now step the right foot between the hands, and actually it'll be between blocks. So you'll place your blocks under your hands and see if you can kind of reach the right knee a little farther forward, maybe a little bit over the ankle, and scoot your blocks away from the wall, even more distant. Work on that stretch in the front of the left thigh. Lift up the knee a little bit. So use the foot into the wall to push. And if your right knee is truly going way over the toes, it's not good. So you want to maybe step your right foot, scoot it. It's like scooting the toes forward. This is a good one to be barefoot in, I think. So if you got socks on, you might want to go free of them for now. But push into your left foot. Okay, now the left thigh is getting a little stretch, the front. Okay, now lower the left knee if you can. If that just hurts your knee, then keep it a little bit up. But lengthen the front of the torso so you're lifting up through from the lower abdomen, from the front of that left thigh, through the left side of the waist. So remember when we were sitting on our bolster with our feet to the wall, we're working on lengthening up. So this is a little easier to get your spine to move, right? Because your legs are helping kind of pursue that stretch in the back of the right leg. Okay, now lean back so you're in a reverse lunge with the back knee on the blanket. If you can't tolerate back knee on the blanket and your hands are a little lower on the blocks, right? This is option one. Option two would be your knee would be up behind you, your heel would be up, and your toes would be up and your head down. But make the option purely functional for stretching the back of the right leg. So if your back knee is up, try to stay kind of clued into not how far you can get your head to your leg, but how the intensity is of your sitting bones, both of them moving towards the wall. I know they're not going to touch the wall, but they go back towards the wall. So arms are reaching onto the blocks. What if you can go farther down? I would stay with blocks unless it hurts your hands somehow. See if you can feel the foot stretching the bottom of the back of that right leg, toes up, head down. Breathe. Okay, now consider that you're focusing on your right side a lot here. So as you step into that right foot, lift up the back knee, okay? Now lower down that left heel so it touches either a little bit up on the base of the wall, or maybe the heel goes towards the floor. I can't quite get my heel to the ground. It's not there. So I'm going to take my blocks all the way up. Okay, this is one we've used with a chair before, right? It is a little bit higher, so it allows you to get a little more length. So, if the legs are in two different tracks, I want you to make sure you got the legs are on two separate tracks. They're not on the one track. So you have some more opportunity for the hip. And let's play with this. So what you'll do is you'll step the left foot forward besides the right. Just sense the legs. They're probably real different circulation right now. Step the left foot back to the wall. It's probably going to kick the wall a little bit. Okay, step it back forward to the right foot. Make sure the feet are a little bit apart so you're not stepping on your feet. Your feet are not stepping on each other. Okay, now feel when the hips move back. Don't crunch up your knees too much, but you're in almost like a chair pose. Okay, you're working your legs a lot here just to maintain. And then just simply stand up. So you'll see part of me, just the lower half, but my arms are straight up besides my head's just lifting straight up. That's all it is. Lengthen, but push down to your feet. And just kind of feel the difference in circulation on the left side. Maybe it's minute, but it is different. And the both sides, just feel each side. Okay, now bend through your knees and bring your hands to your hips and then tilt forward. So you're coming into a forward bend and then take a forward bend. Now the legs probably still feel not quite exactly balanced. So make sure your blocks are in front of you. And you could, here's one where I actually like this a lot, is I'll take my bolster. You have to keep your knees bent so you don't hurt your back doing this. Put your bolster on top and then kind of lean into this and let your head release downwards. It might be in front of the bolster, like towards your legs, might not be on top. And you might be lifting up quite a bit with your head. But using the support, if the knees go close together, you got to separate them. You don't have to use the bolster. If you decide I'm going to go just the blocks, perfect. But I want you to have something under your hands or your arms so you're not dangling your spine. It's got a little purpose to it. Okay. So give it another about 12 to 15 breaths. So that's a good minute. It's about a minute. Okay, feel how the spine has its natural arch, maybe not a lot. And the legs. Yes, steep them into the shape. Feel that circulation in the back. Now we're doing our work. This is a good disciplined session of work. You can always take a break. Okay, now bend through the knees. If you've got a bolster, guess what? Move it away and then take the blocks in. And just step the right foot back. I know we've got a balancing sequence with the legs, so lower the back knee and use those blocks to introduce the movement. Now, for me on this side, I have a little bit more issue with knee, so I've got to kind of feel how to spread the circulation in my quadricep, or how I kind of lean into it. And maybe you need to be on the edge of your blanket. Maybe you don't do well with the blanket. You know something I've never tried on this that may be helpful. Put the ball under my shin. That's kind of cool. That helps me. There's no knee touch down, but it is a little bit more circulation. You always try different things. If your knee is up and you're just so used to that work, having your knee up, you might try just see if a ball under the shin works for you. Or if it just looks too bizarre, don't bother. Okay. Yeah, now that length is going all the way right into the psoas. So you're going in towards deeper flesh pathways. Okay, now instead of trying to force the knee into any angle in the front, I want you to get a feel, kind of pack your focus into the pelvis. And we usually move from our feet, right? Our tendency is to push off the legs. But feel if you're moving your head forward and you're moving, if you need your knee off the ground, you're going to keep it up and shift back. But move the pelvis back and the toes lift up so my left foot is flexed. And then I lengthen in the back zone of the body. So let that whole left leg stretch the back area. Lower the blocks if you can. If you end up on the ground with your hands and you just like that intensity, go for it. But get a motion of the weight of your upper body towards that left leg. And feel the flex of the left foot. Feel the length of the spine. You always have a choice to round more or to extend more. And step forward into that left foot. Use your blocks under your hands. Lift up the back knee. And then I want you to try to reach your right heel to where it seems just reasonable for you. It could be heel up at the wall, could be heel towards the ground, could be somewhere kind of between those two lands. But if it's kind of unsure if your heel is in between those stages, you might really like using the wall, even if it seems like you could go farther, but it's not happening. What could be helpful here is that the process of shifting that right hip, the back hip, right, a little bit down. So you're not trying to push the hip back to swing your hip into like a triangle pose. You're trying to keep the back of the pelvis level, like as if you could put a block and it could balance there. You kind of know if you're doing that right just by putting a block at the back of your pelvis. Right, so my right hip is going a little forward. Okay, now step the foot to the left foot, right foot to left foot, bend through the legs, of course. And then just kind of get a feel, move the blocks forward, stretch out the back of the legs, bend through the legs, blocks. This is a little more dynamic pose pattern. Step the right foot back again, oops. Almost sent shock waves through my leg, into my hip. Okay, I go nothing like weight bearing, kicking the wall, huh? Okay, so feel resistance, right? Press, step back forward. We've got 2 more steps. Get a feel of bending your legs. Okay. Yeah, let's let this one, because we're going to be stepping back to legs up. So let's let this one be bending, lifting up the arms, and then push down to your feet and lengthen. And if the arms don't seem to bring that lengthening presence in your sides, so it's fine. Work on pressing into your feet and standing up. I know you've lived in this body for a while and it still feels like, how do I stand up and use all my center of gravity? Okay, bend through the legs, lean back forward, hands off of the hips though, down to the blocks, step the right foot back and still feel that the left knee bending. Okay, now if your right heel is lowering towards the ground, it's confusing where we're at with this. I want you to get the heel at the wall if you can't touch the heel to the ground. I'm not there. Okay, so you want to find a little of that resistance in your calves, because we'll have sand on them in a moment. Well, not on the calves, but the feet to stretch the calves. Now lower down the right knee. Bring the left foot back, left leg back for that matter. Take a position of your bolster to the wall. Just push it back to the wall, on the mat though. And then we're going to sit at the bolster. I know, thank goodness you've done this class for a while. You kind of can go with the flow sometimes. Move it around. Turn to swing the legs up. I know. Now here you have the legs in a different sweep. They're not under you, right? They're upside down. Well, I don't know. Is this upside down or is it? Is this the way I'm supposed to exist? So get a feel as the legs are lifting that, do you need a blanket? What does it feel without? Or maybe a little less blanket? Sense what your neck is comfortable with. We're not going to give any clues as to what would be the right thing. It's just what works for you. I want you to be comfortable in the neck. Yeah, I would add sand because we just did some leg patterns. So use the sandbag, balance it out on your belly. Right, because there's no bones in the belly, the sand, it's kind of nice, it kind of smooths it out a little bit. But once you kind of scoop up the sand with your hands, you have to kind of keep it open still. And then as you bend through the legs, I think you probably have special ways of doing this as well. Push so the feet are apart and the heels are at the wall. And there's this comfortable sense of curve in the knee, just a little bit, flex in the feet, just a tiny bit of that curve though. Okay, if you're good with a very straight leg, it doesn't bother you, fine. And then as we move our arms open, we can sense the flurry of experience we've been having and gather your attention on the circulation, moving the belly and relaxing on the out breath. Feeling awareness in proper shape, right? So as your arms, are they even? Do you feel like they're about the same range? You can always put your hands touching your ribs and see if you can move them spatially back out. Relax the back of your hands. I imagine one of your hands is a little bit more worked up. Whatever your dominant hand is, it's likely not going to curl as easily, right? It's been stretched open so much more by writing or activities you do with the dominant hand that it can't quite relax. So see if you can feel the back of that hand, resting. So this whole carpal area can relax. Imagine if you had little bean bags, it would be good for this one. A couple eye pillows, one in each hand. Take a few moments longer. Relax the back of the pelvis, the tailbone. Now when you feel the feet, a little bit of that press up, it might feel, likely the back of the legs can feel that they're straight. Okay, and that's going to be interesting in this next passage. So feel when the legs are lifting, move them a little bit away from the wall so that you're stirring up the muscles and that resistance up into your hips. Bend through the legs. Okay, and then as you move the sand away, I want you to feel we're going to be going directionally back versus rolling. We're going to kind of stay with this spine stretch. So my feet are at the wall, however far they are, up or down, it's all depending on my knees. I want you to just notice how the knees in this position do stretch the back. I hardly notice that. I notice it when I spend the moment to notice it, but I'm usually trying to get out of the pose, so I don't spend the energy on this moment. I'm already in the next pose thinking, you know. So feel when the knees bend, feel the feet apart, and see if you can settle into it for a second here before you push back. So that may mean you move your hips up a little bit. What I want you to try to do is move your hips down to the bolster, like you're moving your knees into your chest. Okay, so that's helping to stretch out that lower back. It's going to be so good on our back. Now, scoot the blankets back a little bit, and this way you're going to kind of start to slide back. That's how we're going to get out of it. So scoot back, your knees are bending. The funny things we do. The things we do for yoga class. Okay, scoot back, and now I've got my feet on the wall, and I have the bolster still at the base. I haven't moved that. Please don't move the bolster. It'll be really good to have it. You'll find out. Have it at the wall. So place something between the knees. If it can't be a ball, it could be a block. And the ball is responsive. That's why it's nice. And if you end up squeezing it, if you need to give it a little touch, it will accept it. So feel when you push into the wall, okay? Hands could be random. They could be touching your legs. They could be on the ground. And your blanket is under your head. But as you lift up your hips, you push into the feet. Good, lift up the hips. Stretch the arms back overhead. Decide if you want the blanket or not. You can always push it back. And then I want you to lower the spine and feel when the spine lowers down and the arms eventually lower down. Okay, inhale, lift the hips again and feel the circulation move and weave even to the shoulder blades. I feel a lot of my upper back here. And then massage down the spine all the way through. And if you land at the back of the pelvis or you kind of land at the kidneys, you know, feel that you get the tail all the way resting down so the buttocks relax. That would be the challenge, is getting all the way through to final composure with this. Let's take 2 more drawbridges. So we're simply going at our very own pace. And when you experience lowering down, you want to get a feel of that movement of the spine, regardless of how the arms balance out. Maybe they go really slow. Maybe they're not even part of the movement down. They could just stay up. That's okay. And then feel through the spine. So that means your arms don't have to go all the way to the ground to finish up your spine massage. All right, just feel what works for your back. Okay. Now I know this group has the ball. Okay, so we're going to use that for some core conditioning. I love core conditioning like this because it doesn't strain my neck at all. So it's no neck issues. So you're going to take the ball, and I want you to scoot. Your feet are going to go down to the bolster, and then you kind of scoot back. I think the blanket, for me, I'm liking it right now. I can see a body that might not want this blanket, and it just crunches up. So you don't have to have it. But anyway, you try. You decide. Okay, now I'm pushing back, and my distance from the wall is going to be, so my calves are on my bolster. So it's kind of far back, isn't it? My feet are at the wall, my calves are on the bolster. Okay. Now, walk the feet onto the bolster. If you don't have a ball, you probably would just do the sequencing without anything under your sacrum, because the block wouldn't really do it. You don't get the core conditioning with a block. So push into your bolster with your feet, lift up your hips, roll the ball so it's under the back of your pelvis. So it feels like it's between the buttocks, right center at the sacrum. Okay, so if you're not sure the ball's, and it probably, when you lie on it, it goes a little one direction more than the other. Our bodies are habits, we have habits. You want to try to get it right in the center. Maybe you have to move your clothes a bit. Make it work. Okay. Now my feet are on the bolster, so I'm going to move my right knee in towards my chest. Okay, and just alternate the legs, but see if you can barely touch the bolster when you alternate. Just barely. You go slow. Hands are down besides your hips, palms down. You can try it with your hands off the ground. Remember, this is not a competition, but it is this little bit of a core value pose pattern. Okay. So if my hands are on the ground, it's a little easier for me to alternate. My feet don't touch the bolster. Okay. Now, next time your feet are both going towards the bolster, oh, you're going to lift the legs straight up. Okay. If it's a little wobbly, that's okay. You're trying to get the legs just straight up, not together, like tightening them up, like wrapping them together. You're just trying to let them lift up out of the hamstring. Okay. So from up, bend through the right leg, so we're on the same side. Knee towards your chest, so you're pulling it in. The left leg stretches down. If you touch the wall, it's kind of extra easy, isn't it? You just use the wall to hold your balance. See if you can be a little bit away from the wall so you're using your core. Okay, bring the left leg back up, the right leg straight up, then the left knee, and then go into that second side, right leg lowers down. I like doing core work that's kind of comfortable, but I can feel a little minute challenge in my stomach area and my lower abdomen. Bring the right leg up, left leg up. Okay, so as you feel both legs lifting, you can't do any action of pushing down to the ball because you've done all your body weight on it anyway, right? So bend through the legs so they feel like they're at a right angle. Well, at least they feel like they are. They may not be. And you're bending the legs. And then as you lower the left leg down, I want you to touch the bolster with the left leg, the wall probably with your foot, and hold the back of the right leg with both hands. Kind of clutch. It doesn't have to be hand exactly. You might just clutch your wrist with your left hand or vice versa. And pull the right leg in. Yeah, this is such a good feeling. Front left leg sensation. It could be better. I know we could add sand and do a little bit more, but I want you to feel how this ball process is for your posterior core muscles here. Okay, switch the side. Highlight. We are going to do this without the ball in a moment and see if you feel like the ball is better. The ball it adds a little bit of lift, right? Just a little bit. Okay, now if the right leg is not kind of heavy, you want to purposely let the right leg release. I'm gonna run out of time. I gotta get with my program here. Okay. All right, now as you lower down the left foot, bring both feet to the bolster, knees point up, that means. Lift up. Yeah, move the ball aside, and then, oh geez, where's a block when you need it? I want you to get a block, and you want to get your block so that it is under your pelvis. Lift the hips. You can use one block is fine. Block is second setting or first setting, and let the legs stretch down. Okay, roll the shoulders back and towards the spine so you can open up this rib cage that you were just stretching in this core. So I want you to get this platform to be lifted, supported. The legs are lengthened. If this hurts your back and you need to bend them, just bend the legs, no big deal. But try to reach your feet down on the bolster. If you don't touch the wall, it's okay. It's probably better if you do, actually, to do this pose in an accurate form, is my feet touch the wall, like I could put little footprints on them. By the end of summer, I'm going to have all these footprints on this wall now. Okay, so press into the feet and then get a feel of the thighs active. If they're getting kind of less active, you want to really reach through your feet here. Shoulders back, rolling back and in, palms open. Give a few moments. You feel where the spine is working, lengthening. Now, before really pushing down into your feet, I want you to feel them straight towards the wall. Try to balance out the pressure in each foot. Okay, walk the feet to bottoms of the feet on the bolster. Press into your feet so the energy goes into the glutes. You can feel the buttock grip up, contract. And then see if you can round a little bit in the back of the pelvis. So you're scooping to lift the hips up, and they barely have to lift for you to lose the block. Slide it out with your hand, and then we'll do a little bit of hip crossover right now to do a final spinal. So I want you to let your spine ease. Remember, pushing into the bolster can be really nice to get that complete length. Now, have a ball, okay? Have sand. You can probably get rid of your blocks, well, for the moment. And then push your bolster that's down below to the right side of your mat. Right leg is down and cross the left leg to the bolster, okay? Ball at the sacrum, right at the back. And you just kind of use it as an anchor for the pelvis direction towards the leg. And the left leg, as it's crossed to the bolster, you can place that sandbag across the upper, well, actually not necessarily the upper thigh. For some of you, it might be lower towards the knee. For some, it might be middle. You know, let your body sense what is the supportive ability to stretch out of my lower core. It feels pretty good. If your left leg kind of stretches out, that's fine, but you might lose your sand. So just realize any little movement can affect that body support on top. Turn your head to the left, lower your focus inwards, relax your face. You feel what that is. How would you relax your face? Breathing into the body versus breathing into the face is one way to calm the face. Now, if it helps you to put your right hand to that sandbag and kind of ease the body weight onto that left leg so it's helping the hip loosen up, releasing the lower back, and letting it rock a little bit on the thigh, the flesh, and then let your head shift back in center if you haven't already. And you know, there's always more opening in the chest. Of course, this openness of the arm is useful with the floor underneath it. It's like your most basic chest opener, isn't it? Okay, slide the sand away, bring your knees back in without the ball under your back. Unless you want to do a little bit more of that core work, you could. Bolster to the left side of your mat. Left leg is straight down, right leg over to the bolster. Yeah, you might have a little different habit swinging the leg on the second side, so just be curious about it, you know, not too judgmental, because you probably have some protective ways of movement so that you can get along with a general amount of peace of mind about things. So just notice, it could be interesting to keep that sand on about the same place. If the second side feels different, add the variety to your pose, right? Maybe you have your sand higher, maybe lower to the knee. And then when you turn your head to the right, I think turning your head on this pose is a good direction. Yeah, bending your arm might be better for you than straightening your arm for your chest stretch. I happen to find a pretty good position right now with my elbow bent and my hands are against my right hand is against my block. And that really helps my shoulder a bit. So be creative. Feel the rotation, gently spiraling from the hip up and through the spine. Feeling your body shift back into center, head center. And then as you move the ball, it goes bye-bye. And then the sand, it stays nearby. Bring your knees over to your left and push your hands to help yourself come up and get a setup here for your block. So you're going to put them under your bolster. If you like to do chair shoulder stand at the end, you certainly could set up your chair for that. Those of you that have had some tutorials in that can go into that. But once you have your bolster on top of your block, so you've got a little bolster bench here, you might bring your blanket on top into a roll. I've kind of played with stacking it up a little higher. If you have more blankets or pillows at home, just add them. That's not going to quite hold my legs. Okay, there we go. All right, so as I put my legs on the blanket and get enough height, my feet not touching the wall so they could float. And then as I work my way back and have this elevation, you might decide to, purposely move the back of the pelvis, kind of let that area span and relax. So it's not gripping and moving inwards, but it's relaxing outwards. Okay, the legs have to have some sort of continuous balance. And that's why I actually like this blanket pull this way. It kind of grips my calves differently. I'm pretending it does. Okay, sand on my ribs or sand on your shins, whichever you want to add, if any. And when you have that level of circulation at, both lobes of I think of it as the lobes of the lungs, as you have your trachea here, and then you got your ribs and your lungs. So it's definitely your whole respiratory balance here. So you kind of push the sand in so it balances right above the diaphragm. And then as I lower down, the sand is sort of like its own second diaphragm here in this position with the sandbag. So when you breathe in, you allow the abdomen to relax. And as you exhale, it has a secondary relaxation towards the spine. So feel where the spine is weighted. The sand is a weight right for your spine right now as well. And gather your attention on the even rhythm of your breath. You get a feel where the weight is in your pelvis and in the spine. Right now, if there's kind of mystery zone that feels like it can't really be weighted like the belly, but there's not a bones pressure in that area. There's no bones in that area. There's organs. So they kind of are a little flighty with movement of breath. They certainly appreciate that massage of the belly moving with the breath. So go without the sand on your ribs, slide it away. Let the arms stay downwards versus too far out. And feel that container of torso active with the breath. Both directions, up and down. Now, if you happen to have sand on your shins, in the next few moments, find a useful way of movement, body mechanics to shift that away. Be careful of your back. And then for all of us, moving your heels to the blanket, you could try a little cobbler pose. This might be kind of welcome. I'm going to do a lot of cobbler motions today, but that's okay. Balance with some diversity of shapes today is good. So now I feel my heel kind of hooked to the blanket, and then as I move my knees towards the chest, feel as if you're working on architecture. Body mechanics is what it is for us. So your knees slant towards your rib cage, kind of going forward and back. So you're using your core. So notice this is a nice way to do some lower abdominal work, just having your knees lifted and sliding the shins, back and forth. Just a little bit of movements can perk up that lower abdominal zone. Just helps you feel more connected from the top to the bottom. And then roll to your side, whatever side feels good for you, and come up. And let's take a moment. So there's just a few sheds of exhale together. So finding a seat, finding the balance of the bones up into the shoulders from the back, moving the chest open, and let your hands lift in front of your heart center. And notice if that is high up for you or if it's really low. And let's integrate a focus, breathing into the space behind the heart. And exhale, bowing into your heart.